Why, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Innovantage Podcast, where business meets tech to bring you your competitive edge. As always, I'm your host, Max, and it is my ongoing job and duty to explore that edge between business and tech. Today's edge is going to be about success, the everlasting and the ever so elusive goal of any startup to be bought out by somebody bigger, to be successful in your own ventures, and what happens after you have actually been successful. Is there any sort of life after you have reached your personal and professional goals? Hopefully, we will find that out today. To help me on that journey is one Thijs Verheul, who is the co-founder of United Wardrobe, a company you might have not heard about, but United Wardrobe has been bought out by Vinted, a company you may have heard about. Thijs is now an angel investor and author of Thrift to Thrive. So, Thijs, welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did your journey turn out? What is it that you do currently, and what was your startup about? Very briefly.
Yeah, so currently 33 years old. And when I was 18 years old, I did not really know what to study. So I first started with law. I did that for 2 weeks and I realized like it's totally not my thing. So I quit studying. I became a ski teacher for half a year in Austria. I had an amazing time, but then I was 19 years old and I realized I wanted to go to university. I went to Wageningen University. It's like a famous university in the Netherlands, known for agricultural business, also for life sciences, but also it's a university really focused on recycling and the environment, and that's where I met Jules Berden, my co-founder. That was in 2013. And we were both like struggling to find a cool business to work on, and we really wanted to build something big and impactful. Like we wanted to have a nice impact on the environment, but also we wanted to create a real business. And he told me like I have three sisters. They have a lot of clothes, but there's no marketplace only for clothes. And in that time, we did not know about Vinted. Like Vinted was still like a tiny Lithuanian company. It was only active in Germany, but we just were super young, 22 years old, and um, initially I totally did not believe in the idea. I told Shul like, okay, there's already like the Dutch eBay, it's called Marktplaats.nl, you have Facebook groups, you have vintage stores. Why should we create a marketplace only for clothing? Like nobody's gonna use it. And for like a couple of months, he kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually, he convinced me to start the business together with him. And that became a crazy story. We just launched the website in January of 2014. We got some early traction, and yeah, it's a really long story. But in total, we raised like 3.5 million in venture capital. We had 60 full-time employees, and eventually in 2020, we got bought out by Vinted, our big competitor. And at that point, we could become Vinted shareholders. I could go my own way, and my co-founders they still work at Vinted. And yeah, right now I'm just became a father, and I do angel investing. So one of my most known investments is Breeze. It's a new Dutch dating app. They're currently live in the Netherlands, Belgium, New York, Brussels, London, and Paris and Berlin. So it's like it became a really big dating app. And I did some investments in cybersecurity and also some in the hotel industry. Um, and yeah, since I sold my business, I wrote a book about this whole journey. It's called From Thrift to Triumph. I think we will just include a link in the story if you want to read the whole thing. And yeah, now enjoying life a little bit less stress free than my old life, which was really, really stressful. to start a startup that actually got traction. Like, yeah, we had 4.5 million users. We did like 40 million GMV of clothing each year. And yeah, since we sold it, it's become a bit more relaxed.
So, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for telling us what it is that you've done and how you came to us.
Yeah,
First and foremost, congratulations on becoming a father. Would you say
thanks,
that that's the
thanks.
biggest achievement that you've done, or is selling to Vinted still bigger?
No, yeah. No, my daughter is the most important thing in my life right now, and that's yeah. When you just became a father, like you realize that's the only thing that matters. Of course, selling a business is also nice to have.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
business. So, I'm sure that there's a
yeah,
lot of young entrepreneurs out there that have an idea, that may also have a sister or somebody else in their family struggling with a particular problem that they think they might do something with. And you
yeah,
mentioned yourself that you didn't really believe in the idea in the beginning. So, how do you overcome that? What really helps you get over that hump of, okay, I have an idea, and okay, I'm doing something with the idea?
yeah. I think when I talk to founders and when I look at my own company, the most important thing is that I was in a team with people that had complementary skills. So I always say you need a hippie, a hacker, and a hustler to get something off the ground. So me, I'm the hustler. I'm doing the deals. I'm doing the business. My co-founder Shul, he's the hippie. He really had the vision of this idea, and you see that like the hippies, they have a vision. They can maybe build a product, but they cannot really sell it, because every IT product that really takes off the ground, of course, you have some indie hackers that solo hack a product and it works. Of course, you have that, but the chance that you have a product that will become a success is way higher if you have, yeah, a team with you. People that motivate you around all the time. And then, of course, you need a hacker that builds the product. So when I look at startups, like that's so important. And for me, we did not think about it. Yeah, Shul, he just came to me. We started, and yeah, we hacked the first version together with our engineer, and we just put it live. That's also a thing. You need to create a product. You need to think about it, but then as soon as possible, you just have to put it live, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to work. The Stripe checkout needs to work. The registration needs to work, but yeah, it can just be a buggy product. And if you launch it and communicate it, and then people are testing it and trying it out, then you can analyze the data and then you can iterate on that and make it better and better and better every day. So for young people that want to start a business, yeah, the most important thing is just find a cool team. Don't do it on your own, because on your own it's so hard to really scale a product or find motivation all the time. And then just put it live and test and test and test. And maybe it will come off the ground. And maybe after a couple of months, you realize it was not the right product market fit. Then you will just launch a new product.
So, the importance of people in our current landscape, the AI landscape, where people are
Yeah,
being laid off, where
yeah,
there's talk about the one founder unicorn somewhere out there that may happen
yeah.
very, very soon. Do you feel that that is still the case, where you still can find those connections and they're still valuable, or maybe that it's maybe the landscape is now a little bit different and you can outsource the hacking to ChatGPT, you can kind of steal the
Yeah,
idea from somebody else and just do the hustling yourself and just save a lot of shares?
yeah. Well, that is a possibility. But for me as an investor, if some crazy entrepreneur comes to me and he has like 50K MRR, but he's doing it on his own, and I will invest in him. And after 2 months, he will have a burnout or whatever. Of course, he can create a team around him, but there will be no other entrepreneur that will fix the problems for him, you know? So, as an investor, I would, at this point, will never say never, but I'm not that interested in solo founders because you really need a team to get a business off the ground. Like, I I prefer like three people working on a project full time with like all 33% of the shares, um, because then they have ownership. And yeah, of course, you have indie hackers, and there will be a unicorn founded by just one guy creating a crazy app or a website. Of course, that will happen in the age of AI. But for me as an investor, I want to see a team. And also for me personally, I'm working on some small projects right now. And yeah, if it weren't for the people around me, it wouldn't come off the ground because yeah, in a team you have some vibes, you have some positivity, you want to yeah really perform and let other people see what kind of skills you have, and yeah, become successful again or get traction again. And with a team of people, it's so much more fun and so much more motivating to work on projects. So there will be solo founders that become billionaire or create billion dollar IDs, unicorns. But I think the chance is just way bigger if you do it with a team of at least 2 to 3 people.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So I'm guessing
Yeah,
the teams that you select when you invest into somebody as an angel, you always look
yeah,
for diversified multi-person teams, personally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There in startup investing, there is no golden rule or there is no playbook or something. Yeah, follow. You need to follow the data and your gut feeling. And yeah, sometimes you're wrong, but you just need to invest in one startup to make it all up for all the other failures. Um, yeah, but in the age of AI, there will, yeah, you will have crazy one-person teams that can do this stuff, and maybe they will become super successful. But yeah, then the whole company is just based on one person, and maybe this person can create a team around him, give away shares, stack options, as we call it in the Netherlands. Um, yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
both approaches have value and have life. Yeah, they can
yeah,
work. And we haven't had our $1 billion company by one person just yet. And I believe that what you mentioned, the kind of the psychological side of it, not just the skill sets of it. I do definitely agree that having a complementary skill set is very important, especially when you're starting out, when you're building something from nothing, and even when you're working, in a company or anywhere else. If you have a team that's balanced, the end result is much better. But the important thing here is to also remember the psychological part of it, the motivational part of it, where you have to have somebody who believes in an idea, somebody who can help you believe in that same idea, and that supports and props up everybody around you, and together basically you
yeah,
make things happen. So that's definitely something that I personally believe in as well. Can you tell me what was your kind of first big win in that initial first stages, like that made it kind of snap and say like, yeah, this can really work?
yeah. So what we did prior to the launch is we created a Facebook page. At that time, everybody was using Facebook. Nobody was on TikTok or Instagram. And we just asked our whole network to like the page and follow the whole process. So we just started building in public before it was cool. We just posted all the designs, posted the IDs we had, and then we had like hundreds of comments of people that say, "Oh, you need to do it otherwise, other than eBay, and maybe I want to pay with PayPal, and I want to place a reaction on a product that is like available for everybody, so." People can, if there's a question, read out those questions and have more information about the product. And then we launched the product on day one. we had 500 registered users, and that was like really the point, like without spending any marketing money, just on Facebook posting. And that was the point that we really realized, like, hey, we are onto something. But then after like 2 3 weeks, the whole platform died. And yeah, we found two Facebook groups. They were called kleding aangeboden gezocht, like yeah, how do you translate, like clothes to find and sell. And there were like 75,000 people in those two Facebook groups. And yeah, with a bit of negotiation, we could buy one Facebook group and post another message in the other Facebook group to tell people about United Wardrobe. And all the products that came into United Wardrobe, we posted automatically in those Facebook groups. And that is when the snowball started running. Like these Facebook groups, there were already 75,000 people trading in those groups with clothing, and they were having a hard time because they got scammed, and there was a lot of bullshit in the groups. So when they realized there was something like United Wardrobe, the Dutch Vinted, um, they realized, like, hey, this is a platform where I can buy and sell clothing in a safe way, because just like Vinted, we keep the money until the product is delivered by the seller. And our yeah, we just told these users, like, hey, we're gonna help you sell your clothes. So we're gonna post your clothes on Facebook. We're gonna use Facebook advertisements. And then just all these people, yeah, they just merged with United Wardrobe, and then the product started to scale. Then we got the first liquidity and the first 10,000 products on the platform, the first 100,000 users, and yeah, it was just scaling from there. But it all started with like really just buying these two Facebook groups.
Sounds extremely simple from today's point of view,
Yeah,
but I'm guessing it wasn't as simple when you were actually doing it. There was no playbook at the time of how to do like guerrilla community marketing for starting out and launching something that hasn't existed before.
yeah, but I also think that for us, it really felt like do or die. We were so motivated to get the startup off the ground. And when you really want to scale a startup, it needs to be like 100% focus. You need to want nothing else so bad than get success with your startup, because that's the only thing when it's really gonna work. Because if you're not motivated, you're not gonna do sales, or your sales will be crappy. But when you're like 100% motivated, then yeah, then the sales is gonna be perfect, because the other person is just gonna feel that you want to hustle the shit, to get things off the ground. And yeah, it's easy to say because it worked one time for me.
Well, yeah, there's of course some form of survivorship bias when you look at success stories, but that's not the
Yeah,
only type of conversations that I personally have here. And I can definitely say that, the more kind of work you put in, the more you have a chance to get something out of it. It does not always correlate to just, you do your best work and you get the best outcome. Sometimes you do your best work and you get some sort of outcome. But if you don't do your best work, if you do not want that, like you said, if you don't have that burning desire to actually invest into something, then you will definitely get nothing. And that's kind of
yeah,
the playbook the playground that you are operating within. So then,
yeah.
maybe the other side of that coin into that whole discussion, what was maybe kind of the low point or like the biggest mistake that you have done along the way in that early stage?
Yeah, I think, yeah, the lowest point was when we raised our third investment round. So first we raised 250K, then we raised 1 million, then we raised 1.5 million, and we just started hiring so many people. Like at one point we had like 60 full-time employees and like 30 people we hired to just to get the French market because Vinted was owning the French market and we were getting some traction within the French market by using influencer marketing. But then after half a year, we realized like Vinted is already so big in France, and to win this fight, we really need to raise like 50 million to also go on the French television. And Vinted was already so big, so all the venture capitalists also told us like, okay, guys, maybe you should try another market. Um, and then we just had to fire like 30 people at the same day,
Oh well.
just to make sure our runway was covered and we would not go bankrupt. And for like 4 or 5 months, we tried everything to keep them on board, to find traction again, to save cost in marketing. But eventually, we realized, okay, we have to back down from France and focus on the Belgium and Dutch market again. Um, and it was just so stupid because we were so young and we really thought like, okay, we're gonna hire a lot of people so we can grow. We did not realize that we had so much overhead by managing these people, getting everybody on the same page. Um, and that really felt like a big failure because also these people were just working for us, they were working super hard, everybody was loving the product, they were all young people, and then from one day to another you have to tell people, hey, sorry, your contract is ending, or and that's really shitty, of course, especially when you're young and you're working with motivated people. But again, these people also realize, they were working for a startup and they already saw in the numbers for a couple of months that France was not coming off the ground as the Netherlands and Belgium was. So that was the hardest time building United Wardrobe. It was in 2018.
Hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, it does sound like a very, very noticeable low point for any
Yeah,
company to go through. You invest into something, you push on it, and it just doesn't work, and then you have to step back very much. Like hiring basically half your workforce is, well, it's not pretty for anybody involved. So, how did you pivot out of it? So, what was your kind of success story in the end? How did you solve that problem?
so we went back to frugality. So
Hmm.
we hired an office manager. We had like crazy vacations, and we just scaled everything down to the core, and that was just developers. And I had a whole marketing team of influencer collaboration, Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And back in the days, I was doing that just by myself. And like I scaled that whole team of 8 people. I scaled it all down to just like one person helping me out with the marketing, and focusing on these campaigns again, because I also saw that when I was not doing the negotiations as a founder, then the collaborations always were higher. We always had to pay more, and as a founder, if some influencer told me like, "Hey, we're going to create a YouTube video, it's going to cost you 15,000 euros," then I would say, "Okay, can we do it for 11?" And then when they would say, "Okay, we do it for 13," and then I would save 2,000 euros. But a lot of influencer marketers were just like, okay, they mentioned 15,000 euros, so I made a deal. And then, realizing that, I always was like, okay, but didn't you do the negotiation? And then they tried to do the negotiation, but if you're not the founder, also people are not taking you that serious all the time. So they had
Hmm.
some good deals, but in the end, I could always make better deals because I was the one that made the end decision. Um, And going back to frugality also was super good for the team because we were developing way quicker. The team was smaller, and we realized that the Dutch market was still so big to win. And we started focusing again on the core markets, and then we started to grow again, and then we started to actually make money instead of burning money all the time.
Hmm.
And basically, we saved the company by doing that.
Great story. Great story. Thank you very much for telling it and for being so honest about it. Honestly, I feel
Yeah,
that in our current climate and culture, you only talk about the good stuff. You know, that's you only succeeded, you only did the right decisions, and you never did anything wrong. But I always am mistrustful of those kinds of stories. There is always ups and downs in
Yeah,
entrepreneurship, and you have to kind of the whole skill set of an entrepreneur is to adapt to those kinds of challenges and still persevere, still move forward, in my opinion.
yeah,
So then you've mentioned a few milestones in your startup so far. So like the initial phases, you've been funded several times, you know,
yeah.
the current situation of going up and down. Are there any other like milestones, significant ones that you've went through the life cycle of the company?
Yeah, eventually the exit to Vinted, that was of course like the cherry on the pie, as we say in the Netherlands. I think it's also an English expression. Um, but this exit process, it took us eventually from the first bidding to the exit in October 2020. It was like a 2-year process, and it was brutal because Vinted was already so big. And yeah, we also realized that we had this golden idea. If I talk to my friends, I always say I could have been a billionaire, because like literally we had the same idea. We were also in the trajectory of raising money, but eventually Vinted just got way more money funded by Thomas Plantinga, the Dutch CEO, and they did an amazing job. And also we were super lucky to get acquired by Vinted, because like normally Vinted would just enter a market and they would compete the local competitor out of the market. And yeah, I know like several companies, I think already 30 or 40 companies in Europe that just did not make it because Vinted entered the market, and they could scale with this strategy of Thomas so quickly that you have like a lot of Dutch companies that just went bankrupt because they were selling bags, or they were having vintage stores all around the country, and they just had to close down because Vinted was there and they took over all the secondhand business. Um, and this process with fighting with Vinted in the Dutch market, because in 2018 they entered the Dutch market, and they were just blasting money on the Dutch TV. They were spending like 1.5 million on the Dutch TV only in the Netherlands, and we had just 50K marketing budget. So it felt like lying in the trenches to fight with them. And we could get the company on the ground because Vinted was doing TV commercial, and we did all the social commercial and all the influencers. So we had a really young audience, and Vinted activated all the older, mostly women, to sell clothes. And they started Googling selling clothes on an app. And we were already active for like 6 years in the Netherlands, so we were number one in Google. So we also got all these new people on the platform. But eventually, Vinted was going to get so big that it was like, or Vinted would become the big player, or we would become the big player. And then, yeah, we also realized this, and we just had an M&A partner that started doing talks for us. And eventually, Vinted came out with a bid, and they acquired us. But we would set the deal on the first weekend of March 2020, and that was the same weekend that Corona hit Europe big time. So also the deal got paused for half a year, and in this half year, I did not know if the deal would pass through, and it was such a stressful period. But eventually, the deal got through. And then also one of the most funny things about this deal is that when you have a deal like this, you always have like some upfront money, you have some earnouts, but you also have some shares in the new company that's acquiring. And I was telling my co-founders, and we were telling the Vinted M&A team, like, no, we don't want these Vinted shares. We just have money so we can start a new life and do something different. And then Thomas, CEO, he called me and he was like, "Yeah, guys, just keep the shares because Vinted is going to the moon." And I was like, yeah, this guy is so aggressive in doing business and he's scaling so fast. Like, why not just give me the shares? And it's like one of the best decisions in my life, like financially, because Vinted is now worth like 5 billion last August, and it's almost a year past that investment round. And I strongly believe that it's going to be one of the biggest clothing companies in the world. It's going to be worth maybe 100 billion in the coming 10 years. So yeah, that's a crazy decision, and also it's so funny because eventually I did not want it, and then he convinced me, and yeah, now I can do some startup investment because I can sell some shares when there's a possibility to. So forever grateful for Vinted and Thomas. Um, yeah, so I think that's one of the coolest accomplishments. Of course, when you start a startup, yeah, to get it off the ground is a thing. To really make money is a thing. To create a big team is a thing. But if there's also an exit involved, then of course I wanted to become Vinted. But yeah, sometimes you have to deal with it, and we had a really good outcome. And yeah, Vinted is a company. I think we now have like 2,500 people working at Vinted. Like it's becoming so big, and it's also, I realized, not something that I want to do in my life because it's so super stressful running a business with that scale. I'm way more comfortable in smaller teams than in businesses like that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And again, the same kind of theme, the same story by having the right people beside you, not just throughout the skill set and what they can achieve and do for your business, but just having that support and that point of view and directing you into the right direction, basically, and then making the right choices along the way. So that kind of serves you well throughout your journey, as far as I understand. But what actually happened
Yeah.
after Vinted bought you out? So, like, did you just become a shareholder and just attend board meetings and that's it? Or was there anything else that you needed to actually do for Vinted? How does that look like?
Yeah, so after the exit, I still worked for, I think, 4 months, because all the users that were on United Wardrobe, like 4.5 million users, we had to migrate them to the Vinted platform, and we used influencer marketing to communicate that. So I was in the lead of doing all these collaborations. Um, and after that, we only get, like, I'm a small investor, like I'm a small shareholder in Vinted, but I just get quarterly updates every month with the performance. And my old co-founders and a lot of friends, they still work at Vinted, so I hear what they're doing, and I talk to the CEO a lot. He also invested in Breeze together with me. But yeah, sometimes I give feedback, but I'm not in a board or anything. I'm nowhere to have any influence in what Vinted is doing. And they're doing a great job, so I'm just a happy shareholder. And yeah, after this exit, I took all time off to write a book about it. People can yeah, click the link in the subscription, I guess. I also published it for free for students or people that want to create a business. And yeah, after that, I started angel investing and also working with startups again, but on a bit slower pace than yeah, I was used to. I now work like 4 days a week, and yeah, do a
So
lot of
living the
hikes
dream.
to. Yeah, yeah, you can say that. Yeah,
Well, hopefully your daughter will thank you for your financial decisions when you were younger and have
yeah,
more time to actually spend with her. So tell me
yeah.
about
Of
the book.
course.
Why did you decide to write it? It's not an obvious choice to go next after having financial success.
Yeah. Like, first of all, it was also, I really wanted to write the whole story down, like everything that happened. It was all so stressful and in a blur. And I just wanted to get back to all those emails, all those Slack messages, and to have it for myself personally as a document, where I could reflect on. And then one of my friends during Christmas told me, like, hey, because I was telling about this process, and I was, yeah, I told her, like, yeah, I already got like 8 pages of just random United Wardrobe stuff. And she was like, hey, people will find this very interesting to read. People that are going to build companies, people that want to get venture capital on board, and people that want to read the real story behind this success. Because yeah, we were in the Dutch media a lot, and people talked about like the big success story of United Wardrobe, but then I always realized, yeah, we went bankrupt for almost 3 times, and for me it was so stressful, and I almost quit for like 4 times. And everybody was just like, "Oh, you're so smart and super successful," but then it was like, yeah, but I worked with super smart people that made it work eventually. So it was not all on the founders, it was on the whole United Wardrobe team, on the developers, on the customer support, on the marketeers. And we made a lot of mistakes. And I just want to have this honest story about just 3 young students creating a company and eventually selling it. And also this whole process of selling a business. When you look at the media, or you look on X or Instagram, then you see this message like, hey, this company got acquired by that company. And then people think, oh, it's just like in 2 weeks they made some Zoom calls and then they sold their business. But that's not how it goes. Sometimes this process takes like years to eventually get a sale through the pipeline. And yeah, I wanted to have like young entrepreneurs have this story for them, so they can have a real view on how it's like to start a startup, to raise money, to hire people, and to eventually get acquired. Like this whole process. Um, and yeah, I also really thought it was just so cool to put it all down and make a book out of it.
That's very, I wouldn't say like completely altruistic, but I do commend you for publishing it for everybody to read for free. So we will put the links in the description so you can read it for free as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. Can you tell me, like maybe one kind of try to distill it? What would be one advice that you would give to anybody that would read the book, something to entice them to read it?
Yeah, you should read it if you're like stuck on finding the right team members. I think after you read the story of United Wardrobe, then you realize that you really need team members. And I think AI is wonderful and it's going to help you a lot, but eventually you need people to be on the ground and to help you. And I also say to founders, just get an office together and work together in real life, because behind Slack you cannot see someone's emotion. And it's also a fun ride, and to enjoy it a bit, because we enjoyed it from time to time. But you will read in my book, also personally for me it was so stressful. I was like almost having a burnout all the time, and then just got myself to the office back again and again, because like everything for me was in this company, because my parents don't have a lot of money, and I just came from a normal family. And for me it was like do or die. If I could not sell this company or could not make it successful, yeah, I just had to become a marketer somehow, somewhere for a bank or something, and I did not want to have that. Um, and also, you can read all the stupid things I've done, and maybe don't do that for yourself. So yeah, I think for an entrepreneur, it's just fun to read.
Yeah. So don't do stupid things. That's just what.
Yeah, don't make
If you can.
stupid mistakes. Yeah,
Okay, then. So moving on to investing, angel investing
yeah,
in particular. So how did you arrive to that you want to become an investor? I understand that those realms are very close. When you're a startup founder, you talk to a lot of investors and you raise money, but
yeah,
being an investor, actually profiting from other startups, is a bit of a different game. So how did you arrive to that?
yeah. When we sold the business. It was a lot in the Dutch media, so a lot of entrepreneurs emailed me, or they sent me a LinkedIn message or Instagram messages, and I got so many pitch decks to look at, that I could really cherry pick the ones that I thought were winners. And that's really important when you want to do startup investments. You need to have a lot of deal flow, so you can, if you see 100 companies, then maybe with a couple of them you can do a good deal. Um, and for me, it's like really fun to look at these new teams and to look at startup entrepreneurs that really want to change the world with the product they're working on, and then help them a little bit in their journey, and then advise them sometimes or help them with sales or marketing. For me, is something really cool to do. But it's also difficult. I did now 8 startup investments, and like 3 or 4 are really doing a good job, and the other ones they're still a bit in the middle and having a difficult time. Um, but I learned a lot about these processes, like about safe notes or equity deals or valuations, and what to look at in a startup, and yeah, what I don't like and what I do like. So it's also a lot of learning by doing, and it also can be boring because you give money to a startup and then you have to wait for like 8 years eventually when there's an exit, or sometimes after a couple of years there's a possibility to liquidity. But for me, when I started doing startup investment, I really thought it was way more like thrilling and exciting. But it's just a lot of data analysis and a lot of waiting until something really comes off the ground. But it's fun to do, and I love supporting young founders.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I'm sure a lot of young founders are really happy to hear that with their pitch decks already on standby to send you.
Yeah,
How do you do that selection process? So how do you cherry pick? What do you look for? So probably already a few people in the team with complementary skills. That
yeah,
I probably understand. Anything else that you look out for?
yeah. I just love entrepreneurs that already done it 1 or 2 times. That they sold the company and then they start a new company, and then with all the stupid mistakes they made and also a bit of financial freedom, they start doing something again. Because then I know that they start this company really to work their asses off for the coming 10 to 15 years and to create something different, and they're not going to sell it at an early stage. Um, and when those entrepreneurs are looking for funding, that's for me a no-brainer. And also when they come somewhere out of my network, so I can double check their motivation or double check uh, how people worked with them and if they like them. And then I will check the data. I will just check their growth, and the faster a startup is growing, the more likely they will get funding, or they will get successful. So for me, the entrepreneurs at first, they're the most important because I invest in the seed stage. I do tickets until 100K. So, I'm not a big investor, but I do just small angel tickets. And then when I do a ticket, I tell my network, and then they can also co-invest with me. Um, but in this seed stage, I just really want to see entrepreneurs that, already had success, and they really want me on board as an angel, not because of the money, just because I can help them with strategic decisions, and their business just already needs to be flourishing a bit and growing. Um, but there's no golden rule, and sometimes I meet founders that are not second time founders, but they're doing it the first time, and their product is great, their team is great, and maybe I can do the investment.
Okay. Okay, that makes perfect sense to my ear. It's an interesting point you say about, like the disparity between having done it before.
Yeah,
So successful exits, I'm guessing, is what you're primarily looking for. Have you ever had nice startups that you've invested in or considered investing in where, the founders came from a more traditional business? I don't know, they had like a lumber mill and they didn't like exit or sell it. They just kind of, they were done with the lumber mill and they decided to start a startup about lumber for some reason or
yeah,
another, transitioning from traditional business into startup world.
yeah. So I invested in Eddy Grid. It's an energy company, and they build software for batteries. So
Mm.
if you have a factory, and you buy batteries, you want to get them paid back as soon as possible. And these guys, one of the co-founders, Sam, he had a shipping business. It was a bit similar to Vinted Go. So I talked to him like 5 years ago because he was a bit competing with Vinted Go, and Vinted also had this ambition to become a big shipping company. And he was a Dutch guy, also just he lived in Arnhem, just an hour away from here. So we had some coffee, just random entrepreneurs talking to each other. And then I heard that he sold his company and started a new company with one of the Booking.com first developers. Because Booking.com was also a Dutch company. And then I thought, like, well, wow, these guys must form an amazing team because they're two super skilled people. And one of the founders of Booking.com made an investment in my earlier company. So I asked him, Arthur's his name, like, hey, what do you think about this developer? And he was super positive. So I thought, like, okay, and there were still zero revenue, but I thought, like, okay, this is going to be a great team, and they really want to create this new software battery company, and not just sell it quickly. So for me, that was a no-brainer. And yeah, he just had a shipping company, but together with this booking developer, he really could create an AI software company for batteries. Um, so yeah, he came at not at the yeah he not came from a real tech startup environment, but way more traditional shipping environments. But those are also the people that can create real nice businesses because they've worked at an area and they've seen a real error in a process, and then they can make something better out of it. Um, so yeah, there's no golden rule. No,
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear that there is a path forward, not just for tech entrepreneurs or serial startup exiters, but actual real businesses as well. There is life, and there is
yeah,
investment waiting for them in
yeah,
that life.
yeah, and
But you've mentioned Breeze several times, right? And you've
yeah.
exited with Breeze, as far as I understand. So, what made Breeze stand out? How did that go?
Yeah, there's also a crazy story because there were seven founders, all students, and first I thought, like, seven founders is just way too much people, but
Yeah.
it was such a fun team and they had traction, and these seven founders were super complementary. So they were developers, they were designers, a marketeer, and yeah, when I when I saw them the first time, they just did a couple thousand euros in revenue a month, and yeah, they got some funding from Rogier Fischer. Is one of the most known Dutch angels. He created the Dutch crypto marketplace, and now he has a cybersecurity company. So it was like, okay, what does this guy see in these young people? Because obviously he's really smart, and he asked me, like, hey, can you help them out with the marketing? And then I started working with them, and it was so fun. They were so smart, and I also thought, like, never thought that I would work for a dating app, and how these like, dating apps are also marketplaces. Just like with clothing, you need a lot of clothing to find the right buyer, and also with a dating app, you need a lot of people to find the love of their life. And the more people there are, the better the connection could become. So it was such a fun process with working with these young, motivated people for a new dating app where you cannot chat with each other, but because at Breeze you match with somebody, so you can see your profile. Then after a match, you cannot chat, you fill in a date picker, and then eventually the date picker would say, okay, Café Leidsestraat, 8 o'clock in Amsterdam on Saturday. And then you
Hmm.
just go on a date, and this experience is so fun. And yeah, my sister-in-law found her husband there, and I know so many people that, yeah, meet the love of their life on Breeze, and they tell me, oh, I'm so grateful, and people are so happy, and we already have like 5 Breeze babies that we know of, and there are like 25 marriages came out of Breeze. So that we really know of. Of course, there's way more, but people don't tell us. But yeah, it's such a fun way to look at a problem from a whole different angle, because I had all this knowledge about clothing marketplace, and
yeah, you can apply a lot of it on a dating platform, but not all of it, of course.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and yeah, it was just a fun ride, and also the growth was so exponential. People really want to get out of Tinder and Bumble because those apps, they only work if you are long time single, because Tinder is making money and Bumble is making money when you're single, because then you are a user. And Breeze makes money if you do a lot of dates and then find the person of your life. So it's a whole new level. Like at Breeze, we want you to find somebody really quick and delete the app. And at Tinder, and Bumble, they just want to have you as long as possible single on the app, so you would pay for a subscription. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the wonders of the current dating world, I guess. But I don't really have a lot of experience here. I'm going to be honest with you. I've met my wife like 15 years ago, way before apps existed. So I've kind of, it went right by me. But from what I hear and from what I see in the younger generation, then yeah, the Tinder and the Bumble experience is kind of just monetizing men, I guess, mostly because that's the demographic that dominates those apps, as far as I understand. And
Yeah,
there's very
yeah,
few women, and they're very picky, and they just extend the life cycle of them.
yeah. Women are the most valuable for dating apps, because men are, like, if you look at just online marketing, they're 10 times more easy to get on a dating app than women.
Hmm.
So like on for Instagram ads, you would pay like €25 for an app install, female app install, and then just men register for like 10 cents. It's crazy. Yeah.
So yeah, where's Breeze now? Like, what's their current situation? I'm not really familiar with them, honestly.
Yeah, they're really focused on their US launch. So currently doing a great job in New York, but also expanding in the UK. I think London is really scaling, and I think we just went live in Birmingham and
Hmm.
Newcastle, and they're scaling UK cities right now, and really focused on yeah, quickly scaling in cities, because the Breeze dating app makes partnerships with restaurants and cafes. So we could connect them and automatically use their reservation system to place our daters. So it's like a city by city approach. Um, yeah, and of course, every startup wants to conquer the US because it's the biggest market in the world. And if you are successful in the United States, you can be successful everywhere. So I think the most of the focus of the management team is now really getting New York off the ground.
Okay. Sounds very healthy and very ambitious, and good luck to them. But coming back
Yeah,
to you, is we've talked about successes in your angel investor life, but what about the failures? Have you had your fair share where you misjudged the startup and where you invested and your investment didn't come back?
yeah. Well, I'm now investing for 4 years, and like in 2 rounds, I could sell some shares with a small profit. And eventually in 10 years, I will see the real success. But there was like one investment I made last year, and I asked some friends of me to also co-invest with me, and they also brought. I put in like 50K, and a couple of group of friends of mine put in 500K in this startup, and then after a couple of months, we realized like the performance was not what we expected, and then some other venture capital party joined the investment on way better terms. And I was like, it's not something, I totally understood the founder, why he would do that round. But this venture capital firm was a bit too aggressive, in my opinion, and would prefer if that process would went the other way or something. But eventually, having a venture capital firm on board in a startup is always a good thing. So I was happy to have that deal through, but the whole communication around it was not, could have been done better by the startup, I think, and maybe I expected too much from it.
Hmm.
And there's also one other startup, that's testing a lot and already is doing 2 years of really hard work, but did not come off the ground. And it's always difficult to see, and that's also just startup life. You can sometimes work for like 8 years on a product and it does not come off the ground, but you have to pivot fast, of course. But it's always the question: when are you going to pivot, and when are you going to leave the idea, the initial idea, and start pivot to something else? And it's really difficult for founders, especially if they really believe in a product. But so a couple startups. I've never had a bankruptcy or anything. It's just like still they're working on it. They have not raised bigger rounds, but yeah,
So no spectacular failures yet.
no
You've
spectacular failures
just
yet.
threw your money, and it would have been better to just burn it and do nothing with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, hopefully you will never have that situation. Not that I'm hoping for it. So.
no, and you always like startup investments. If it are more are like riskier than crypto. If you want to do startup investments, you only do it with money that you don't use at all.
Mm.
And you can. I think you have like startup investing, and then you have crypto, and then you have single shares, and then you have houses, and then you have ETFs or gold. Like that's super safe.
Yeah.
But Tesla, maybe it can triple on the stock exchange in the coming years, but a startup can go times 50, but it also can
Yeah.
go to zero. So
Yeah.
it's high risk, high reward.
Yeah. It depends on your risk tolerance. Like, what's your preferred methods, your preferred poison. But from
Yeah,
the fund managers and investors that I've had on the show before, everybody tells me that it's basically just a numbers game. When you're doing it full time, and especially for a long time, the kind of big numbers speak for themselves. Of course, if you're an amateur investor, then yeah, it's money basically just wasted, more or less. But if you
yeah,
invest into 100 startups, one of them goes like 100x, and you've basically made all your money and made a little bit on top. But you need to have that capital to make those 100 investments.
yeah,
Otherwise, yeah, or 10 investments and one goes 10x. And it's feasible, it's doable, but don't expect that all 10 will go 10x. Basically, the wisdom that they share.
yeah, yeah, totally true. Yeah, and I also
Yeah.
feel like being an amateur investor. I just did some startup investments, and I have a big network in Dutch startups. But of course, UK startups or US startups or the big AI companies are just like so much more likely to go times 20 or 30 than the startups I invest in. But still, I help the ecosystem here a bit. So eventually, I like doing it.
I
And it's
think
also
that's
more
one
and
of the
more
most
fun.
important parts.
Yeah.
Hmm. If you like doing it, then you know even if you're not succeeding, you're still getting something out of it for yourself. And if you don't
Yeah.
like doing it, even if you do succeed, then you still have spent so much time to get to that point that you have to ask yourself, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, but looking towards the future, let's do some snappy YouTube short kind of content. So, what would be your
Yeah.
advice to younger startup founders? What should they do that people should do?
Yeah. You need to find a complementary team. If you are crazy developer, you need to find a crazy marketeer. And if you have like a really good vision, and you love working in Excel, find this crazy hacker that can build your product so you can do all the data analysis. And just start off, pushing the software live, testing it with all your friends and family, learn from the mistakes, analyze every morning all the data that you can find, and then just work on the product until it's better every day. And scream it from top of the roofs, post it everywhere, spam people to death, and just try to get it off the ground with the least amount of resources.
Then one more little piece of advice. How do you handle the stress when you're trying to push forward, when you're spending people, when you're spending resources and your rundown is getting smaller and smaller and smaller
Yeah,
and Vinted is dominating the other markets?
yeah, yeah. You need to take time for yourself. You cannot work 10 hours straight. You just need to work a couple of hours, make a walk in the park, do some meditation, relax, and then get back to the office. Just being in the office for 6 hours straight or 3 hours straight, no human being will perform at a high level doing that. Just take your time off and try to relax a bit and try to work with people that you like, because if somebody's irritating you or if you work with the with persons that are not giving you energy, it's not going to work in the long time and long tail term.
Yeah, nicely said. Nicely put. So thank you. Thank you, Thijs, very much. Thijs, can you tell me where people can find you? Where do people reach out to you? Where do people hear more from your thoughts and your ideas?
Yeah. So I'm active on LinkedIn. Currently on LinkedIn, I have a summer stop. So in September, I will be active again. So if you send me messages, I will react in September. You can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I communicate the most. But I'm also active on Instagram. And yeah, those are my two channels. Oh, I also have
Cool.
an X account, but I only have 50 followers. I just started a couple months ago, checking it again. And yeah, there's a lot of cool startups building on X. Somebody tipped me on the built in public space. So yeah, you can also follow me on X. So I have some more than 50 followers. But on LinkedIn,
Wow.
I have almost 17,000 followers. Yeah,
Well, X is getting there. You will get there very soon. From 50 to
yeah,
16 and 17,000. It's very
yeah,
close already. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Thijs, very much. And
yeah. Also,
thank you. Yeah. You want to say something?
yeah. If there are founders out there, hopefully if you read my story or have any questions, you can always send me a message on LinkedIn or Instagram. And yeah, I wrote my whole story down for you so you would not have made the stupid mistakes that I made. And maybe you can find some inspiration and start building and start finding co founders.
Yeah, I concur. If you are a founder, please reach out to Thijs and hear him out. So thank you. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for listening to us. And if you are a founder on your journey, do check out the resources that we have available for you. If you're not, and if you're just nestling your idea, consider that maybe now is the time to actually move forward with it. In the other cases, if you liked the episode, tell us about it in the comments. If you didn't like it, tell the first ones about it in the comments, and you can talk to each other about it. You'll never guess where, probably also in the comments. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, share, and subscribe again to our stuff on other platforms. And I think that's all of the algorithmically correct words that I needed to say for this episode. So thank you very much. I hope to see you soon next time, and bye bye.